on research and production of art. I'm a member of the Watercolorist Association of Granada and Andalusia, and my paintings have been published in some important magazines along the watercolor world, and I'm making my way through, and happy to be with all of you today. So about my artworks are always full of architecture, perspective, always in search of light during the different parts of the day. So in this case, for example, we have an evening scene, or on others we can have a calm harbor scene as well, full of reflections. And when it comes to your palette, I like to always tell my students that it's good to start with a few colors, maybe a warm color and a cool one. For example, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue. So we can start with 2 or 3 colors, making some interesting grays depending on the amount of cool and warm colors that we are using. So if you use more warm colors, you get more warmer grays, of course, and if you use more bluish colors, you get cooler grays. After this, it's always interesting to add some other different colors, some such as yellow ochre, or I don't know, oranges, cabin orange, for example, or transparent orange. We'll be using it a lot during the course. So little by little you can increase your palette, but it's always good to remember that what gives quality to our watercolor is controlling the different tones that we can use, and of course tones is related to grays and to this tonal value that we are always talking about. So here you can see some of my more industrial scenes. I love to paint architectural scenes full of industrial features as well. This is called the Vertical Societies series, where I invent and paint from my own imagination. And okay, let's talk about the materials that you will need from the workshop. I always insist that it's a good idea that you always use your own material. We don't want you to buy exactly all the materials, just a recommendation. So of course, watercolors in tubes are always welcome. It's the best because you can achieve all this a whole variety of tones, from the lightest tones to the darkest tones. And of course, watercolor brushes, it's good to have them because they carry more amount of water and paint, and it's much easier to paint with. Okay, so I'll be using Arches 300 grams per square meter Imperial Salts paper. In this workshop we are also using Saunders Waterford paper. Both are good quality papers. Watercolors in tube, as I mentioned, a metallic palette because it makes your colors keep softer for a much longer time. Masking tape for the borders. It's always nice the moment when we finish the painting and take off the masking tape. A paper towel, water container, water recipient, these are auxiliary materials, water sprayer, a pencil for the preliminary drawing as well, and a soft eraser that does not leave any mark on the paper. Okay, so for brushes, I use, in the first part of the work, I use round brushes such as mops, petit gris, and so on. In this case, I'm gonna use a brush called Da Vinci Cosmotop number 16 and 10. These are round brushes, mixed brushes, both natural and synthetic here. Also Skoda Perla brushes, these are synthetic brushes number 14 and 8. They're quite good for putting some more detail into our work while we can still make some nice washes. And then you can see at the right of the picture 2 square brushes, Soft Aqua of Raphael number 40 and 20 millimeters. They are good for architectural squared features. Okay, so let's paint Backlight Evening in Úbeda. So in a few moments you'll be watching the video of the process, and we'll paint along. So it's important, sorry I didn't tell you. So you'll find all the sketches and reference pictures of this first painting in your personal account. So I guess that when you logged in to this session, or maybe later, you'll find the link for your personal account, and you can see all the material there. Okay, you can also grab them using the buttons right below this video. So is everyone ready to paint? Drop a plus in the chat if you're okay with it. Okay, so I will try to comment the video with you. So now we are with the preliminary drawing. We have put the horizontal line, this horizontal line that you can see from left to right on the lower part of the painting. We have tried to also find our focal point. Our focal point is where all perspective lines come together. It's where you can see the heads of both of the figures. So we have a low composition. This means that the focal point is in the lower part of the painting. I am putting the main volumes in. We have tried to divide the work into sections. So the left part of the painting, it's this big building on the left that is all shaded, and on the right part of the painting, 2/3 of the painting, you can see the rest of the main square and the main building, with this church and the street going to the left. Okay, so here we need to to start planning verticals, horizontals. I'm putting in balconies and rest of elements in. And we need to spend a little time drawing. We have these two main figures where we're gonna have the main attention and so on. Okay, you are asking me, I use a metallic palette. I believe you can find it under the Royal Talents brand. It's got two big zones for mixing. As you can see, on the upper zone I mix warm colors, and on the lower zone I mix cool colors. So for this painting, I'm gonna try to describe when we finish our preliminary drawing. I'm gonna describe the colors that we are gonna be using, okay? So now we are with the main tower of this church. And we are putting that in. It's always important to have a good drawing before we start painting, because a good drawing helps us to get familiar with the subject, and even if we make a really loose painting afterwards, it's always good to be familiar with all what we are painting, okay? So some figures in the back as well. I try always to be sure about the verticals, the horizontals. So we have all these perspective lines flowing into the center, and then we have verticals and horizontals for the rest of the work. I think you are listening to me with a little bit of delay between the image and what I'm saying, so we are sorry if the audio is not exactly corresponding with the drawing, okay? And yes, about some questions that we also have in the chat. In this case, the colors that I used are not exactly the same that from the reference picture. I mean, the reference is just that, a reference, okay? So what we are doing is try to find more or less the same lighting, but we are changing colors, we are changing the time of the day, and that is not a problem, because we wanted to be a little bit more in relation with that, okay? Okay, so now we are explaining the colors a little bit. So main colors are gonna be ultramarine blue as our main blue, as our main cool color that we are going to use for this painting. And as for warm colors, we are mainly using transparent orange from Winsor & Newton. Rest of colors more or less are from Rembrandt, but this transparent orange, I find it quite nice from Winsor & Newton. And when we mix transparent orange with ultramarine blue, we always end up with a really nice gray that we can make cooler or warmer depending on the amount of blue or transparent orange that we are using, okay? Then you can also see in this mixing paper that we have been using, I also added some yellow ochre. As I told you, you can always put some more color into the mix. In this case it's yellow ochre. And as darker colors, we also put some Van Dyck brown. Okay, so mainly using these 3-4 colors. These are the colors that have been used to making this painting. So sometimes we don't need to put so many colors into the mix. Okay. Okay, so I have started putting some ultramarine blue for the upper part of the sky with my Da Vinci Cosmotop number 16, and then firstly we have put down some transparent orange for making this sky much warmer on the lower part. We don't really put we don't really leave areas out, so we keep going down with the flow of the painting, starting adding as well a little bit of yellow ochre, and right into the horizon I'm putting really strong transparent orange as well. We try in this first layer that everything is connected, everything is mixed. So we keep going down. On the right part of the scene, we are trying to leave some whites, not really whites, but I call them like somehow relative white. This means that these are areas where the color is much closer to white. They're gonna be really light areas on this part because of this building on the right. But it's important to have a uniform atmosphere for the whole painting, and that is why we are trying to connect all this wash into one. Okay, so on the first layer everything has to be connected, everything has to flow together because that makes it much easier to work with. As you may know, our brushes can also be used to put paint into the paper, but also from taking it off. So we are finishing our wash to the bottom, and now it is time. First thing is always to put the whole wash down, and before we finish we're gonna work a little bit wet into wet on this first layer. I always try to take advantage of this first layer, putting wet into wet brush strokes on top of this big wash from the first layer. It's starting to dry on some areas, but we are still connecting some of the shapes. If you have any questions, just let me know. This is a good thing that we can interact among each other. Okay, so as I told you now, I have grabbed a small brush. This is a Skoda Perla number 8, it's the small brush, okay? And I use synthetic brushes such as a Skoda Perla to put wet into wet technique on top of the big washes. So by doing this, I try to put some medium tones on top of the light tones that we did on the first wash, okay? So I try to reinforce some of the perspective lines, lower areas of the buildings, division between the street and the, how you say, the part where you work, no, where you walk, the pedestrian part of the street on the left. So now I'm mixing some transparent orange, mainly with ultramarine blue, achieving warm grays. I'm putting in some of the trees, some of the vegetation that we have there on the back. I'm trying to make everything wet into wet. Yes, for the floor, I have mainly used transparent orange from Windsor with ultramarine blue. The rest of colors are most from Rembrandt. The thing is that we use more warm color, and that is why it looks warmer. Okay, it's still wet, so we can still apply this wet on wet technique. I'm always carrying a tissue with myself on my right hand, because it's really important to know the amount of pigment that you're putting into the painting, okay? So sometimes if you put too much water and it's still not wet, you make this effect, this cauliflower, no? So the water makes the painting spray, and it's not always really nice. Sometimes you can use it for achieving some nice effect, but on most of the cases it's these happy accidents that are not really nice. Not happy accidents, it's when it's when it's nice, no? When it's, you like what is happening. But normally when we work wet into wet, you're putting more density on top of the painting, okay? So by doing this, you can achieve a correct integration between the painting and the shapes, okay? So now in the back, it's starting to get wet, but it's starting to get drier, sorry. But we want to achieve this this mysterious atmosphere in the back, and that's why I'm putting the last brush strokes on the horizon, no? This brownish gray, trying to making it mix wet into wet. If you wait too much, it will be dry, and you will end up with a rigid, with a cut between the sky and the horizon. Okay, so I guess we are getting to the end, sorry, of this first layer. So now we need to let this dry, probably. And once it is dry, we're gonna start with this beautiful second layer full of shadow and contrast. And now is when we have to pay attention to all the shapes. because on the first layer is more about making a loose wash, but now we need to pay more attention to all the shapes as I'm telling you. So now we're getting strong into the main part of the church. So this upper part that contrasts against the sky. Now it's a more bluish color. It's still the same mix between ultramarine blue and transparent orange. And we're trying to make a big shapes. I always try to make big shapes. So all the part that is facing us, all the part of the architecture that is facing us is under the shadow. So we are blocking it right away. And we are leaving the left part of the buildings because this side light is coming from the left part of the painting, okay? Okay, some smaller brush strokes now with our Skoda Perla number 8. And now I'm trying to take off a little bit of amount of pigment from my brush, so I can dry brush a little bit. We have talked about wet into wet, and now I'm gonna talk a little bit about dry brush technique. Dry brush technique, you need to have a little bit more of amount of painting on your brush. I'm talking about density. So the density of the painting needs to be a little bit higher on your brush, but you can't carry too much water or pigment because the idea is to use the texture, the roughness of the paper to scratch your brush against it and get this nice feeling of this dry brushing technique. And that I use it for windows and for architectural features and so on, okay? But for the main shapes, for the tower again, now we needed to control a little bit more, so I made this big wash again, leaving the small balcony on the small window balcony on the church. Same mix again, smaller brush for smaller features. Now we're reinforcing wet into wet inside a big shape. As the tower, we can also put wet into wet some darker areas for the windows and for the main features. Continue a little bit wet into wet for the vegetation, for the trees, leaving some whites out. It's always nice to leave some whites. Okay, I believe you have a pause now. So any questions? Somebody is asking about a certificate completion. Well, I guess some kind of certificate is possible. I need to consult with the team then. You can ask them. Let's continue with the video then. Okay, so we're through our second layer. Remember, we were putting our big washes in, mixing ultramarine blue and transparent orange, and now we're adding some wet into wet effect inside. With a smaller brush, always with a higher density. when we are using a higher density with a smaller brush, synthetic brush, we are able to put these features inside. So this part on the right, as you can see, is mainly in the light. But before putting this big light, we are dry brushing with a small brush some of the windows, some of the key elements, and it's always about creating rhythm, creating effects, and making our watercolor look alive. So taking a bigger brush now, and by this 45-degree shadow, I was giving you this contrast between light and shadow, also using our watercolor sprayer. And with this watercolor sprayer, we are able to create this nice effect that will dilute the painting and make it look vibrant. So now we are moving to the left part of the painting. I'm taking my big brush. Someone once told me that it's always a good idea to use the bigger brush that you can. And so for this part on the left, for this big building on the left, we're using Da Vinci Cosmotop number 16 because we can make a really big shape with this brush. Of course, leaving some whites out. With the whites, I mean the first layer. It's always nice to leave some of the first layer out, so the second wash doesn't look so opaque. So it's got some holes in it, and you can leave these small lights inside. Now I'm trying to connect with the shadow. We are always mixing ultramarine blue with transparent orange. Now shadows are a bit warmer. So you can sign to the course from today. Yeah, it will be open on the next few days, but you can sign starting today. And if you register, yes, you can get a record of the marathon plus all the paintings of the course. Okay, now you have seen me using my credit card. You can put painting on your painting, and you can also put it out, lift it up. So sometimes I use my credit card, or you can even use your nails if you want to scratch out some of the painting. But it's always a good idea to use it at the end of the process. The wash still needs to be wet, the wash where you are trying to scratch some painting out, but it shouldn't be too wet. If it's too wet, it will close again the wash and it will look dirty. Needs to be still a little bit wet, but there is this right moment where the paper is not bright anymore, but it's still wet. Then is when you can scratch the painting. So now we are going back to our Skoda Perla number 8, our smaller brush, and putting in figures. So it's the same mix: ultramarine blue, transparent orange, perhaps a little bit of burnt sienna, but with a smaller brush and more dense pigment, we are putting in all these figures. Okay, smaller brush, adding some features. We put in both of the figures. One of them is carrying a trolley for the child. Some burnt sienna, transparent orange for the face, a lighter color for the dress. And now we are dry brushing with a smaller brush these street lamps that are in the shadow, of course, and are also giving us this big parallel shadows that make these nice shapes. So we are continuing with our smaller brush, our Scola Perla, putting in all the figures and all the rest of the details. This big shape on the left, this building is still wet, so we can keep on adding detail on top. And while the painting is wet, you can still keep on adding detail on it. Sometimes when it's dry already, I try to spray a little bit on top, and that gives it a little bit more of life, so we can keep on working on top of it. Scratching, putting some painting, it's always about put and leave out. But try not to overwork your paintings. And I always tell my students, when you don't know what to do, it's better to leave your painting. When you're in the flow of painting and working and you know exactly what you're doing and you're at a good pace and rhythm, then it's quite nice. But when you start fiddling and you don't know anymore what you're doing, then it's time to go for a beer or for a wine or for some water if you don't want to drink. And then you can come back later and see what is left. Yes, you are watching the video at a normal speed, I guess. I don't know if it's, I think it's normal speed. But you need to paint fast because watercolor dries really fast. And the technique we are using is mainly like impressionistic, so we don't really want to go too much into detail. We already captured the light. It's pretty nice in the back of the picture. Or also scratch a little bit of perspective lines with my nails and so on. And now I'm using my hair dryer because I want to put on top some opaque painting. I'm not a purist. Purist means that you can only use the white of the paper. I believe that watercolor is beautiful when big shapes are sold with transparent color. Of course, big lights and shadow have already been sold with transparent painting. But it's not a problem. I think if we use at the end of the painting opaque painting to reinforce some of the elements. I don't know, figures, street lamps, and so on. Okay, so they are telling me to make a small pause. Shall I click pause here? Okay. Well, you are writing a lot on the chat, asking some questions. I already told you can register from today on. And somebody is asking me about the composition of my palette. Well, my palette is mainly composed of earthy colors and blues. For the cooler part of my palette, I have Payne's Gray on the right, lower part, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue. Cobalt blue is a cooler blue, but I sometimes use mixed with the Van Dyke brown to create some grays as well. And ultramarine blue is a warmer blue that I use in combination with transparent orange, as we saw in this video, and burnt sienna as well. That makes really nice grays. Then you have a greenish color called turquoise blue. Don't mistake it with cobalt turquoise light. Cobalt turquoise light is this turquoise color that you can see on the left. And then I use some greens such as pearland green and so on, but we won't be using it too much in this course because I don't use it that much either. And then there is a yellow at the left, lower part of the palette, and that's cadmium yellow. Okay, so for the warmer part of the palette, the upper part, I have Van Dyck Brown. No, sorry, first we have neutral tint. It's a color for increasing the tone without varying the temperature. So we don't make it cooler or warmer, we just increase the temperature. We also have Van Dyck Brown, we have burnt sienna, raw amber, sorry. This is this greenish amber from Rembrandt. Yellow ochre that we also used in this lesson. Cadmium orange from Windsor, as well as transparent orange. Both of them I used them from Windsor, as well as cobalt turquoise light from the bottom part I told you before. And cadmium red light. So that's my palette. In the end, I also use some opaque colors, such as titanium white for highlights. And there is a color also from Holbein that I like a lot. It's called Spanish is amarillo brillante, that is bright yellow number 1 from Holbein. It's really good for these final features. So I'm gonna ask if we can continue, or I guess we can continue to finish our painting. There is only 5 minutes left for it. Okay. Let's go on then with our painting process. So we are continuing with our dry brushing technique. I sometimes also use my fingertips to put the painting together. And sometimes when the lines are too, when it looks too much like a drawing, when you put a line, I also use my fingertips to dilute it a little bit. So I'm not afraid of using my hands. It's also a nice tool. Okay, so we're getting to the final part of our painting. Now I'm putting some figures on the back with opaque color. For highlights, I'm also using cadmium orange, straight from the tube, because it's an opaque color and we can put some highlights on top. Don't put too much. I mean, sometimes it's nice when we get with this highlights and so on, but it's not a good idea to overwork our painting, because even the highlights say less if we use them too much. Okay, now as I told you, we are using this bright yellow number 1 from Holbein. It's really creamy color that gives us these final touches of light on top of the figures. Sometimes I see that figures are always, with this bright on top, but in this case, because it's a backlighting scene, it's got a lot of sense to put this brightness on the shoulders and the head, because the sun is really hitting the shoulders and the head. Yes, yellow is Jean Brillant number 1, indeed. A little bit more for the back, using fingertips to connect it a little bit more. So I guess this is pretty much the end of this session. Thank you for staying for the video. And if you have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And now is this nice moment when we lift the masking tape. And we see the final painting. So yeah, just practice, and you can paint this painting on your own, and or any other similar to it, and let's see what we can achieve. As I told you before, it's not about making the exact picture from the reference, but creating our own watercolor. Nobody's gonna look at the picture later, the reference picture. The painting is what is gonna remain. So, as I told you before, you can send in your artwork. Here I'm gonna tell you how to do it, how to send in your artwork. So you need the button to log into your personal account. It will show up at the end of our broadcast, and you also will get it by email. Once you're in your personal account, you'll see the lessons for our workshop. Go to lesson number 1, Backlight, evening light in Úbeda, and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the lesson. At the bottom in the assignment section, click Add Files, as you can see in the presentation. Pick a photo of your painting, click on it. Please crop it and put it in the correct format, please. And it will get attached to the assignment. And don't forget to hit Submit Answer at the end. And this is the only way I will see your artwork, and that's the only way it will count as submitted. So if you are clear on how to upload your painting, please type plus on the chat. I will wait for more questions. And okay, so what is gonna happen tomorrow? So tomorrow we will paint this session in Jaén, behind the Cathedral of Jaén. We will see some key skills for drawing architecture. You can download the reference and sketch for tomorrow using the buttons below the video. And also, just a reminder, all the references and material for every day are available in your personal account in the materials lesson. So you can find all the references there, okay? And as I told you before, a bonus for those who pay close attention to the broadcast. So just a reminder, if you watch and listen carefully to all 5 broadcasts and collect all 5 secret letters, remember our game before, you will get this night session, night atmosphere in San Vicente de Alcántara. And now, attention, I will tell you the first secret letter. So the first secret letter is an A. It's an A like in atmosphere. All the letters are in English and uppercase. No need to type the letter in the chat. Don't do it. Whoa. Write the letter down in your notebook or phone, and I'll tell you what to do with the letters on day 5 of our workshop. So let me repeat, the first secret letter is an A, as in atmosphere. So to sum up, here are the plans of the course: Urban Architecture with Adrián Marmolejo. And if you liked what you were seeing, please join us. So let's check the chat. If there are any questions, I'll answer a few just for a few moments. If I missed any message, please just message the support team in your personal account, or just reply to any of our messages. Send us an email or write in the messenger of your personal account in your login. And that's all for today. See you tomorrow at the same time, and bye everyone. I will wait a little bit now for the questions because there is a little bit of delay.